Is corruption in the government a perception or a reality? At Ken Mijungu, at AM Live NTV, and hashtag is AM Live NTV. We are talking the anti-graft war. All right, let me introduce my guest, starting from the man who's sitting right next to me. He's a familiar face, Alamin Kimathi. Thank you very much for coming. Elizabeth Kariuki, Program Manager at KHRC. Thank you very much. And Michael Orua is a manager at the Society for International Development. Thank you, all of you, for coming. I know you're part of the civil society that is concerned with what's happening in the country. Not even what's the scandal at MOH currently. You're concerned with virtually everything. We've seen your hand, we've seen your face, we've seen your energy in a lot of these things. But let's start with what you're doing this morning before we broaden this conversation to go into what's currently characterizing the social media, the traditional media. We saw it trending yesterday, apology to Jubilee for ABC. The question we are asking, and I want this question answered right from Michael, is corruption in the government a perception and a reality? And qualify your statement, Michael.
Thank you. I was about to ask you whether it's yes or yes and no.
No, you qualify.
From where I sit, and an increasing number of people would certainly agree, it is a perception that is truthful. I don't know if that makes sense. There's strong perception that there is far too much corruption in government. And I think increasingly it's becoming a reality that perception is not founded on shaky ground. It is a firm reality in government. Having said that, Ken, I think if I was a political advisor to government, even a perception that is unfounded would worry me. And right now, even if before you go through the rigors of proof and stuff, the perception is extremely strong, which means either way, it is bad for government.
Okay. Kariuki, is it perception, reality?
I think it is reality. Okay. I think since the Jubilee government came into power, we have been treated to scandal after scandal. It has been estimated that there are at least 20 mega scandals that have happened since the Jubilee government came into power. And we have not really seen any real action. So out there's a lot of despair amongst people because we have not seen anything done to anybody and there have been no repercussions at all. So people are getting into a position of despair whereby they feel as if there's no political will by the ruling class to do anything about what is going on. And if we look at the scale of corruption, it is actually becoming bigger and bigger as compared to what it was. So we are not only speaking about the number of scandals, it is also the scale of corruption that is taking place.
All right, and Alamin, perception or reality?
It's a reality, Ken, and a reality that has been admitted right from the top, despite the fact that the top gives no answers and actually pleads helplessness and therefore creating the despondency that you hear and the despair that my sister here is talking about. It is a reality that you can touch even and feel even within any government authority, any ministry that you walk in and walk out. You hear it from inside. You see, you go through, anybody who goes through any government services or even has to deal with government, you have to really feel that you are going through the maze of corruption.
Okay, but how comes it's only the citizens that seem to be bothered? And Kariuki, I'll put this to you. It looks as though the government is not bothered as much as the citizens are bothered about this. From where you sit, is that also a reality that the citizens are more bothered by the government? Because if the government and the leader of this community would be bothered by this, I think there could be some real action. So is it only the citizens? Is it only us who are concerned about this?
Okay, whereas the citizens are concerned, I only wish they were more outraged than they currently are. Because if they were more outraged than they currently are, we'd be all taking to the streets, to say that this is no longer acceptable. It is no longer acceptable that, corruption has become a way of life. It is what happens every other day. So in relation to the question that you have just asked, of course the citizens are bothered, but we wish that they were more bothered than they are. But we have seen a lot of aloofness from those to whom we have given the authority to act on these matters to do anything about it. And as my colleague Alamin is saying, I mean, the whole issue about showing helplessness And, the president putting it to us that he has done everything that, he would have been able to do, and that it is the failure of, constitutional commissions and other institutions that are mandated to fight corruption that are the reason as to why we are not getting anywhere. It must start from the top. Magufuli has done it. So the political will must be shown from the top. Otherwise, we will not move on this matter.
Michael, look at South Africa, what's happening in South Africa currently. Yesterday, the whole day, there were protests in South Africa. A day before that, look at South Korea, what was happening in South Korea. That's a protest, and citizens came out. And she says that it looks as though the citizens, they are bothered, but, they really don't care. And this can be attributed to a factor that I'll ask a little bit later on. But looking at South Africa and the kind of action that was taken by the citizens themselves, not the civil society. And look at Korea, we saw tens and tens of thousands of people on the streets. Why is it that we are just there?
I think there's I would call it, there's a significant level of what I would call corruption fatigue. I think my colleague has just pointed out the number of corruptions, and we are mega scandals. We are not talking just scandals. We are talking mega scandals in the 20s, and it's a concern. So there's a level of fatigue. Even I'm sure in the newsroom, it's no longer really breaking news in this country. So there's that level. If you've mentioned South Africa, and I think I reject the notion that citizens are not doing something. Maybe not in the same numbers. I think we are approaching a tipping point in this country. There's significant active citizenship in this country. What you're seeing in South Africa is active citizenship, and people saying enough is enough. And I think we are headed to that space. Mm-hmm. That is why I think whether it is a perception or not, the government should actually rise up to the occasion and deal with this and draw a red line. It is a government, what we are dealing with is not just corruption, Ken. We are talking about state-sponsored, state-tolerated, state-facilitated corruption. And the level of energy and repressive architecture that you see the state putting out when people are attempting to protest is so ironical. If they put half of that energy in fighting corruption and sealing loopholes, we wouldn't have citizens on the streets in the first place. Okay. So I think the Kenyans are enraged. We will reach a tipping point, and those things will happen at their right time, because I don't think the government has there's a level of aloofness. You said it, that you see the body language of government, senior government officials. There's a denialism that is completely, it's insulting even to the intelligence of an ordinary citizen. Denying, throwing tantrums. I refuse to admit that the
Michael,
president...
at what point, this
Yes.
tipping point, at what point will Kenyans feel enough is enough? What is this point? 5 billion is not good enough? 791 for a few people? 20 billion?
126?
126? That's not good enough. I think if it's not good enough, then there's no tipping point.
It
We'll
is
never reach
difficult
that
to
tipping
script a popular revolution. And what we need actually in this country is a popular revolution in the hearts and minds of citizens. We will reach that point, because until we start making connection between our material conditions, the poverty, the cost of living, the lack of health facilities, medicine, education, security and increasing insecurity and muggings, and the levels of impunity, nothing will shift. Increasingly, we are headed there. So you cannot script it. It will have to be organic, because the government is not interested in fixing it. But people are hurting, and people are feeling like the government is, beyond just denying, is actually making fun. I don't take I hope the president has realized how much of a disservice he did by his declaration that he has done everything he can. One, it is a lie. He has not done everything he can. To fight corruption, there are 3 simple steps, Ken. One, declarations we make, public declarations. The president has done that. Last year, he pleaded with this country, he pleaded with the cartels, he pleaded with citizens. He did everything. He dealt with stuff to do with the procurement. He mentioned it in many inspiring speeches. He's made the declaration. Number 2 is the actions we take. In the space of action, I would not give the president even a D. He is the chief executive of this country. He hires and fires. We are talking about cabinet ministers. We are just not done with Rio Olympics yet. These are people he hires and he can fire. He disappoints and appoints. And he's saying he's done enough. He's not taken enough action. They serve at his pleasure. Number 3 is the results. So you have the declaration, you have the actions you take to bring life into those declarations, and the results we see. Where are the results in this country?
All right. Alamin, if the current scandal is anything to go by, I think Kenyans have not reached that point. If you steal medicine and take your children abroad for treatment because you know there is no proper medicine, if you know our hospitals are pathetic so that you have to supplement them with other clinics, you know, if you know that our health system is so compromised that you can't trust the drugs and the vaccines in your own country, you have to get vaccines from outside to vaccinate your newborns in this country, and Kenyans still say it. I mean, there will be no tipping point for Kenyans. We have our tolerance level is so high, Alamin.
You might look at it that way, but then I fear that it's just going to be a small trigger that is going to get Kenyans
If
out.
health is not a trigger.
It's coming, and I fear it's coming in a big way. The thing that we need to look at and fear so much is that the common man there who is hurting, who is feeling it, where we are organizing, funerals, funeral committees every day for things that for deaths that we could have avoided very, very easily. What everybody is talking about is that we are now reaching a point that we can't take it anymore. But pointing an accusing finger at an elite that probably a lot of people are there, are being sucked into it by perception that you have acquired whatever it is. If I look at you and see you in a nice car, or look at you running a business, and nobody thinks that you came in honestly. And therefore, these are going to be targets of a very unscripted, borrowing Michael's word, unscripted revolution. And we shall be at each other's neck in a very short while if we don't really get our hands into the problem. And we are not going to do it with statements of blame game and passing the buck. What we are going to do is go back to our institutions and clearly enable them and let them work in the way that we agree that this is the way we're going to work.
Okay. And Kariuki, I'm looking at you, and I think you're very eager to talk about the fact that the tipping point is near. But my question to you is, once we bring politicians into this, and we have seen the deputy president stand at podiums and defend some of these things, you politicize these things, then you are not fighting a real war. Once you take it political, then policies and institutions and everything else that is supposed to streamline this fight then sits back and says, let the politicians fight this at the podium. You heard what Murkomen said yesterday on television about taking the projects and trying to get mileage out of it and using it for the future, for the election, things like that. And the deputy president standing in the podium defending some of these actions. I think, okay, think for me.
Okay, I think one of the most annoying things the past week has been the arrogance with which, we have been treated, especially through the interrogation of the Kabura case. We saw, somebody who we are suspecting of having received colossal amounts of money through ways that were not legal, just be extremely arrogant. And in terms of the tipping point, I think we are starting to get really agitated. And we have seen a lot of organizing, especially online, of people just showing their reach. I mean, how dare somebody, treat us to such arrogance. And the fact that, somebody so much money can pass through somebody's hands and not pay a coin, in terms of tax, yet somebody else earning a salary of 15,000 is paying tax dutifully. every month just shows, the extent to which, the corrupt have just had a field day. So in just echoing what my colleagues are talking about, I think it will have to be organic, as he is saying, because, movements form themselves organically. And if you want to sustain any action, then it has got to be organic. But increasingly, we are seeing people getting there. I mean, people are extremely furious and frustrated. If you followed Twitter yesterday, especially at night, because there were a couple of other sessions that were happening in other media stations, you could see the rate with which people, are reacting to some of these issues. So I think we are getting there.
All right, the civil society is sort of the public watchdog, forget about the media, and you're demanding accountability. And I look at all of you and I'm thinking, hey, you're demanding accountability because there's someone pushing you to demand this accountability. Yes.
No, we are not demanding accountability because somebody is pushing us to demand accountability. I think we all ought to realize that the mandate of civil society organization, first and foremost, comes from the people. Yeah, I mean, it has always been said that you're doing this because some donor is funding you to.
Yes.
But I think we are people with a conscience, and first and foremost, our mandate comes from the people. And then secondly, it also comes from the Constitution. So we have a mandate to ensure that human rights are not violated, and once they are violated, then we ought to raise our voice and we ought to mobilize people. Today, as we are going into the protest, we will be, yes, speaking on behalf of people because that is, we have that mandate, but we're also bringing people, to the fore to be able to speak about these issues. So what we say or what we do is not donor-driven, but driven by real issues that are affecting people. Look at this case of the health saga that we are now dealing with. Over 800 million shillings was to go to counties for free maternity. So you have mothers out there now who cannot access that particular privilege that, the president made a pronouncement about, because the money has now been diverted to something else. I mean, we are talking about rights here. So from a rights perspective, corruption really affects the ability of a country to be able to ensure that it is progressively making steps to ensure that people access rights. And with economic and social rights, there has to be an investment for anybody, for you to be able to enjoy, good education, for instance, or access to education. There must be an investment. A classroom must be built. Teachers must be recruited. And so is health. So when money for health is diverted, it means somebody out there cannot access that service because the money has been taken by somebody else. And we also ought to start talking about corruption, for what it is. It is looting, it is theft. When you talk about
theft.
it is just outright theft and plunder, and that is what is exactly happening. So when you talk about corruption, you're kind of, sanitizing it and just making it look good. But this is theft. People have stolen money, and out there you have people in prisons who have even done less. I mean, look at what the implication of this kind of theft has on the lives of people. And then just, start understanding that, we must bring a stop to what is going on.
Someone analyzed the kind of things that go on in this country, Alamin, before I go to Michael. There are few people who take all our money. Few people. I'm sure it's not more than 10, 20 people. Every scandal, you can't find 10, 20 people. There's a few people. These are the same people that we don't have schools. We have seen the laptop project, for example, taken to schools with virtually no roof, right? Under the tree, Electricity connected in homes that don't have a solid roofing system. You think it's more hazardous to have that electricity there than not to have it. Then these are the same people who take our money that go to Harambes to fund a school that this money that you should have originally gotten allocation for went to their own pocket. So essentially, it's a woodwinking the public with your own funds. But I want to understand from where you sit also, aside from that, the perception also that the civil society is out on the street all the time because there's someone behind them.
Yes, Ken, I refuse to accept that statement. Indeed, I feel some little contempt when behind that kind of statement. What pushes me, and I believe that's what pushes a lot of us in the civil society, is that first, we are Kenyans. I'm being pushed by the situation around me in my own house, around me in the street. I am consciously feeling it. And when we see we are dealing with issues of, petty theft, we are actually trying to we are always in court, trying to defend people who have been victimized for very little offenses, and cases drag on, they're in remand, others have been put in prison, and yet the big thieves, the robbers, are out there. You say it's a small clique. Yes, it's quite a small clique, but that has very thoroughgoing, long-going networks which have captured the instruments of the state. It's a state captured by this elite. And when we see that, then it's only somebody who doesn't have a conscience who can sit back. You don't have to be in the civil society to move out.
Okay.
You don't have to be, in any organized setup to be out there now.
Okay.
The time has come for everybody to stand up. We are working in the grassroots. And what you see and feel, when you see people going out without a meal every day and want to sit back, then something must be wrong with us.
Okay.
We don't need to be told by anybody.
Okay. Michael, where there's smoke, there's fire. You guys are going out on the streets, if I may be specific on that, the civil society today, and you're presenting a petition. But let's look at that smoke. Already the government is saying no money was lost. Why are you guys going to the streets? Why?
First, Ken, it's in your best interest never to trust government unless you absolutely have to, number one. Number two, particularly on the case of the health scandal, remember there's been significant contradictions, denials, counter-denials, acceptance, apologies. It's a confused mess from the same government. So even ideally, you don't know which is true. In that basis alone, I think the quest for accountability is just so that there is some level of clarity. Allow me to say something around when you say, maybe citizens tired and stuff, the question you asked earlier. I think even for this particular case around the health, and the health is really, really sensitive. Any government worth its salt, there are things you would not touch. Health is such a dear, sensitive issue that you can't you can't take candy from children's mouths. You can't kill mothers, which is a signature campaign issue of the Jubilee administration. How do you mess up with things like that? So there has to be a humaneness, I'm sorry, for lack of a better word, a humaneness around the corruption we are experiencing in this country. Surely, there has to be limits. So civil society, loosely defined, is that space between the state and the citizens and the church or mosque or temple or whatever it is. So when that question around civil society is asked, people often focus on the Orwas who earn a salary every month because they do governance work, which is legitimate. So first, I accept that completely. Civil society is a significant employer where in a country where the government has only assumed the role of creating jobs is to turn every Kenyan into an entrepreneur. So a lazy argument. So people work in civil society to earn a living. And there's nothing to be apologetic about. Number two is, what do you call those citizens who are not employed by anyone, sit at Uhuru Park every day and feel the injustice and organize a demonstration or organize themselves to go speak to their MP? Isn't that civil society space? Aren't they civil society? So I really never want to dwell much on the lazy government and pro-corruption whatever, cartels, argument that civil society, there's always something around you, because they don't understand the power of active citizenship. You don't have to be, you don't have to have somebody pay you for you to tell your landlord, hey, this water tank is no longer storing water. I pay rent. For citizens, we pay tax. You chose to live there, which means we bought our government and we voted it in. There are obligations and there are rights. Active citizenship. So there's nothing to be apologetic about. I want to say this week, there's been multiple centers of community and citizen organizing on this issue. You are talking about the demonstration today and the petition. It might interest you to know there's equally a parallel ongoing from 7:30 today until noon, a policy discussion by key stakeholders, including the Doctors Union, including Patients Association, that are looking at this scandal from a very different perspective. So these are not they are differentiated struggles and organizings, but they are geared towards one thing. So we tend to dismiss, civil societies we tend to dismiss them as, these noise makers, people whose livelihood depends on them making noise. It's a really cynical and myopic understanding of the role of civil society. If I was in government, civil society would be my best friend, because one, it not only plugs in places where government has fallen short, even in service delivery, but number two, it is the extra eye that says we could go further if we did this way. But most of the time, especially since March 2013, this government has a dedicated commitment, almost a sworn commitment, to frustrate the efforts of the civil society, so to support it in its service delivery agenda. Again, if I was a government advisor, I would be concerned by this level of intolerance, creation of enemies, and sabotaging a sector that is responsible for billions coming into this country. Finally, Ken, I think the government is a major recipient of donor money. Does it make it legitimate or illegitimate? So next time somebody tells you about civil society receiving money from others to do what they are supposed to do, ask them whether civil society and government, who receive the biggest chunk of donor money, external, I'm not talking tax we pay, which is donor money. Government never works. Everything it spends comes from us. But external funding into government, does it compare to what the civil society gets? So I wish
And
the
even
media,
the donor money is in question. Remember Gavi?
Precisely.
Claiming refund 160 million? Yes.
Now, thank you. We refund DFID, free primary education. We have a history of, we take money, including loans and grants, on behalf of Kenyans, young people, women, children, the sick, the dying. A few people in the cabal eat it. The few you are saying, they are rarely 20, or those networks of corruption. The government apologizes, first denies profusely, harasses everybody who is trying to bring it to the fore, then denies, then begrudgingly accepts, then says, okay, we will pay. Then remember I said the government never works. So it will pay what was stolen by a few.
And everyone pays for it.
We pay for it.
Okay.
70,000, 80,000, every new Kenyan born today has that debt.
Okay.
Before they get a registration number, before they get an ID, before they get a name,
You have
they
a
have
debt on your head. Okay, Elizabeth, the petition, as ambitious as you guys are, let me call ambitious, you'll forgive me. Tell me some of the achievements of such actions, you know, going to the streets. What are some of the tangible achievements? You brought it to light. We've seen it in international media. It's been beamed everywhere. And I'm sure this will be beamed everywhere because corruption, this is a big thing, especially that donor money was involved, you know. So tangible achievements, and what do you expect to achieve? At the end of the day, we go back home, harassed, tear-gassed in street? Yes.
Okay. This is not the first protest that is ever being done in this country on corruption. There have others that have been done. Maybe one of the things in which we have failed to do is to sustain the action. But for this particular case, what we intend to do is present the petition today and have a series of sustained actions to ensure that whatever demands we are making today, because we have a list of demands, whatever demands we are making today, we want to follow up on those demands to see that each of those demands, you know, is taken up by the president himself, because the petition is to the president himself. We are looking at the highest, you know, office in this country. Yeah, so that is what we intend to do. Present a petition, then follow up on each of those demands that you have put in the petition to ensure that each of those is
You have a right to
implemented.
access the president and, of course, give this petition and present this information. Is it a likely outcome at the end of the day?
Yes, it is a likely outcome.
What guarantees this?
Actually, that is the outcome we expect. We do not expect any other outcome because we believe, not even we believe, it is a constitutional right to picket. Yeah, and the president as well is a public official. We have put him there, so we need to have access to him. So it is not, you know, whether or not we should be able to present the petition. For us, we must be able to present the petition. So that is an outcome that we're expecting out of today.
All right, and Alamin, yeah.
Yes, we are going to sustain this. And today, we just start, we kick it off. But what we hope to have is that we hope to have the citizen come out from now on going forward. There are simple actions that we hope that we are going to even sustain. We want you to hoot every day at 11 o'clock from now going forward until we see visible action. We want you to whistle. Anybody carrying out, I mean, we need to carry whistles along with us, because we are all turning out to be whistleblowers. We want the citizen to be a whistleblower, an active participant in whistleblowing, not expecting a few people within government or wherever within civil society to blow the whistle. Is the state, is the citizen now to say, I've had it, I've had enough of this, now hear me out. If you don't hear me, I'm coming to the streets. It's just a process of conscientization, a process of coming out. It's not just done today. All the way to Jamhuri Day, you'll see quite a lot of activity.
All right. I'll stop you on your tracks to take a call from Mohammed, and then we will proceed from there, because I also want to know from where you sit, the tangible achievements. But first, let's talk to Mohammed. Mohammed, good morning.
Morning to you.
Yes, talk to us.
Yes, I want to say first, corruption is a reality, but we have been failed, both from the government, the civil servants, the civil society, all have failed us. We Kenyans, we are directly divided in the center. There are those people who are supporting the government. There are those people who are supporting the opposition. When such things, like now the health saga, which touches the lives of innocent mothers, the children who are dying every day, you see, like somebody like Madio, the senator of Kiambu, when they were in the panel the other day, they are all taking sides. Instead of telling us, because they are the ones who are supposed to check the government, all of them are taking sides. Well, will this corruption be eradicated? No. Because all of them are taking sides. Look what is happening in South Africa. The people are coming out to demand their rights. Why are we not doing that? Look in South Korea. They are doing the same. We are not doing that because me, I would support my tribe. Even if it is wrong, I would support them.
All right.
The other thing, they are politicizing everything. Look what our DBT is doing. It's politicizing it. Instead of saying those people who have been mentioned to set aside, or they're supposed to sack them. Look what Magufuli has said yesterday. What has he said? He has said that Tanzania have 100 plus tribes. 100 and plus tribes. While Kenya, we have only 44 tribes. What is making Tanzania to be one? Because they see each of them as one, as Tanzanians. We are looking, if we see our brother Kimani is a Kikuyu, plus me, I'm Somali, we talk of that. Instead of talking as we Kenyans, these people have looted us. What shall we do? We shall come. Now, civil society now, they can do better job. Like you see some of them even, the way that you have said, they are taking sides. Instead of just talking, we don't want to talk. We want to act.
All right. Thank you, Mohammed. And we have also Major Retired Peter Muithi. He's a friend of the program. Major, talk to us.
Okay, Ken, how are you?
Good morning to you. We are good.
First, my regards to the panelists.
Thank you.
They are doing a good job. Now, let me, yesterday, Ken, you remember that you did not agree with me when I said these two principles, Raila and our president, should sit down and dialogue and act. Now, the ladies who are there for human rights and gentlemen, I think they are doing a good job. It is a time now we should push our leaders to address the issue of corruption, tribalism, peaceful election, which we talked about yesterday, equity of the resources to everyone equal in this country. This is the time. This is the time, and I support them. And can remember, I told you how much I earn. I'm retired, but I'm not tired. I want to give you my number, plus all the Kenyans who want to volunteer to make a change and contribution free of charge. What Ken wala wanasema ati human rights wanalipwa. Nani alipwi? But they are doing a very good job. We must put the government into account in areas where they are not doing their work. So my number, if you allow me, Ken, is 07200 35 205, and all other Kenyans who want to volunteer. And let the lady tell us when it is beginning. I'm already deciding to come to town and join them. I'm not afraid.
All right.
I want peaceful Kenya.
All right, Major, we will post your number on our social media now that you've allowed us to share it out, and we'll see the number of Kenyans who will be volunteering. We have about 7 minutes to conclude this program. So I want us to talk about you finish first, sustained, and what is the tangible outcome, and sustaining the momentum until something achievable is done. Then we can do a final round of what is happening today and what will happen if what you expect to happen does not happen.
In fact, that's what we really would want to see, what the Major is saying, that citizens volunteer to take this by the horn. It's a big bull. Let's see everybody coming out now and participating and saying, we are tired. We want to see that to change the language of corruption to the language of theft. That these are thieves. We are going to treat them as thieves. Thieves in our traditional society were pariahs. We need to ostracize them. And we want to start showing the indicators of theft of public money. When anybody carries piles of notes, banknotes, into a church or a mosque, in full display of the media, and wants to donate 2 million shillings or whatever, and we know their salaries, then we're going to say that is theft.
So churches and mosques and schools should not accept this money.
They should not.
They're in need.
They're in need, but we want to understand the converse of that.
And they should also understand this money can be channeled in the right way.
This money can be obtained from, better ways, organized ways, legal ways, but not Harambes. These Harambes are bleeding you down.
So you can also say you can rally churches and mosques and schools not to accept money.
Exactly.
All right. Okay. Talk to us, Kariuki.
Okay. We have a hashtag, Act on Corruption or Resign. Of course, that is a call to the president to act on corruption or else he resigns. Because when he came to us in 2013 and asked for our votes, one of the things that he spoke about was his ability to fight corruption. If he had told us that he was not able to fight corruption, then probably, the numbers of people, the 6 million people that voted for him, then would not have voted for him. So he told us that he has capacity. So the demands today are about the actions he ought to take. In the summit recently, he asked us, what do you want me to do?
Oh,
so
today
we are giving him the answers.
The answer.
Yeah,
okay.
So all the demands we're giving to him are actually proposals of what he ought to do legally. So we are not telling him to do anything that is outside the law. Exactly. No, that's not what we are telling him. We are telling him to do things that are within the law. So I'd urge everybody to come out in large numbers and support the cause. I mean, we have to take this up. We have to do it by ourselves. Nobody's going to come out there and help us fight this. We have to show initiative and do it by ourselves. And then for those that will not be able to join us today, you can join online. There's a campaign. I mean, use the hashtag Act on Corruption or Resign, so that we can be able to put the necessary pressure to be able to get the change that we require.
All right, Michael.
Thanks, Ken. I think we have a young president, we have a young deputy president. They will be alive and well in this country long after they leave office. It's in their best interest that they leave a legacy that they'll be proud to talk about. Currently, things don't look like they're going to leave that legacy. And I just want to speak to the president directly that he needs to understand that he has the power, both constitutionally, he has the will and the support of the people of this republic, and we want him to remember that there's no major threat to this country today than the scourge of corruption. There's no bigger issue or a threat to our existence as a people today than the scourge of corruption. If he can fight that alone, and he has the power, nobody more powerful in this country than the president. If he declares publicly that he has no power, it's a very dangerous thing. So he needs to empower, embolden the institutions. This statement gave a lot of power to the cartels. It disempowered people who, in their small ways, in government offices, whistleblowers who are every day putting their lives and jobs at risk to fight corruption. But I want to say, Ken, that most of, if not every piece of mega scandal that has come to the public domain is because we have fearless, dedicated, patriotic Kenyans, whether in government or outside of it, who have taken the risk to share this information with an informed public. And we celebrate them, we thank them, and we urge more Kenyans to be on the lookout to deal with the 4 Ds of corruption: detect, deter, desist, and defeat corruption. Unless every Kenyan understands it's a personal struggle, personal. It's not about NGOs, it's not about it's not about organizing, it's not about being anti-government, that there's no greater call to patriotism in this country today than a dedicated citizenship and leadership to the fight against corruption. Let us make it the fight of our generation. We are now more interested in our own survival, leave alone that of our children.
Yes, because it's a threat to us. Ladies and gentlemen, unless someone has a pressing comment, a final remark on this, we end. Anyone?
Yeah, I'd like to say something. I think one of the ways in which the state can be able to show us goodwill in the fight against corruption is first and foremost, show us what it intends to do to recover what we have already lost. I mean, Chicken Gate happened. In the UK, the companies involved were prosecuted. Nothing happened here. And over time, we have known how much we have lost. But we have not seen anybody make any attempt to recover anything. I think it is only just that if you steal, you return. So we are also demanding that, the president do something about, showing initiative around recovering what you have already lost. Because it doesn't mean because we have lost it, then they can, just take off with it.
All right.
Yeah.
It is the political season, and you will see who is planning to steal your money in the next term by how they are organizing
spend.
themselves now, how
Right,
they're
right.
spending now.
Okay.
So I am appealing to the citizen that as we look for leaders, let's now see the indicators far from now onwards that these guys will be coming back to reap what they are sowing now, and that we reject people who have monies that we really suspect are dubious.
All right.